Welcome to the Block and Tackle Show, hosted by Karl Block. Karl is a partner in the law firm of Loeb & Loeb here in Los Angeles, California. He will be tackling some of the biggest issues in business today. Listen, learn, and enjoy as he leaves no stone unturned during deep conversations with some of today's most amazing business leaders. Welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karl Block, the host of the Block and Tackle Show. And today I'm very excited on this episode to have an amazing person, super talented, very experienced in the sports world. And her name is Acacia Walker-Weinstein. She currently is the head coach of the women's lacrosse team for Boston College. Acacia is already incredibly experienced and talented. She went to college at University of Maryland. For my Hopkins friends will forgive her for that. Distinguished herself as an amazing player. After her playing days, as a college player, she ultimately ended up in the coaching business. She was an assistant coach at the University of Massachusetts. And then around 2013, she became the head coach of Boston College. So Acacia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Karl. I'm so excited to be here. Excited to talk with you, and thank you for such a great intro. I'm excited to be here.
Perfect. So what we should probably start talking about is, you clearly had an incredible lacrosse pedigree. I mean, they don't put out bad lacrosse players at Maryland. And you were, a distinguished player in some of the under 20 something teams. And I mean, you were a blue chip player. And you come to BC, which, is basically kind of like a startup program. So why did you decide to go from, potentially the safety of one of the major programs at the time to Boston College?
I was so lucky to have experience under different leaders in a similar situation. Before I actually went to UMass, I was Kelly Amonte's assistant at Northwestern, and I was her assistant coach for 3 championships of the 7 straight that she won. And I got to see up close and personal how she did it. I mean, she took a club team to a national championship team. I think it was in like 4 years. Which is unheard of. But I also was a part of, small town lacrosse teams and programs that climbed their way up to the top. And so I was lucky to have a lot of coaches and leaders around me that I was able to learn how to actually do that operationally, but also it gave me a little bit of courage to go and experience it and try and do it myself. Boston College speaks for itself, but the fact that we were in the ACC and, we were not a premier program at the time, but I think the inspiration was there and I had some of the infrastructure that I needed. And I believe in doing whatever you want to do and putting everything you have into it, and nothing can really stop you. And, again, I had a lot of really good experiences starting from when I was about 14 years old that led me to that point, and I was ready for it.
That sounds like it was a great move, and it certainly has worked out for you. The wins are there. I mean, you brought your teams, obviously not with all the same players, to 7 national championship games in a row. Not that many people have done it, and you've won 2 national championships. So obviously you have the winning thing down. You know how to do it, and your players buy into what you do. But outside of the wins, what do you see as your mission is as a head coach?
I feel really lucky to have day-to-day interaction with really brilliant young women at Boston College. And I find that it's my job to help with the formation of them as leaders in the next part of their life. I think in particular, I want to help our girls figure out how to build confidence through their work ethic and build confidence through their experiences, because it's really hard to do what we're trying to do, winning a championship at a school like BC. And there's so much adversity, and I want to teach them how to handle the adversity, how to build confidence getting through adversity, but also I want them to be some of the best collaborators in the working world. When they leave here, I want them to be able to have uncomfortable conversations with men and women that are older than them, or have difficult conversations with colleagues, and how to, um, be accepted into any different work culture, and to be able to acclimate properly so that they can be leaders in the work world and go on and take the lessons from Boston College and learn how to be an exceptional member of the community after they leave here, whether that's building a family or starting a business or becoming a CEO or, starting a new business. I want them to be prepared. And a lot of that stems from them learning how to handle adversity, how to deal with people, how to be unselfish, and how to be aspirational. And I do think that is the calling that me and my coaching staff have. And lucky for us, it translates into pursuing a national championship.
Okay, so that was amazing what you just said. And I don't often hear coaches talk about collaboration. I mean, they'll very globally talk about teamwork.
Yeah.
But the communication, the collaboration, and of course the accountability.
Yeah.
I assume accountability is probably a big part of what you want to teach people to do as well, right?
Absolutely. I think one of the things I think our program did differently after our second national championship loss in 2018 is we really looked deep into the operation, the coaches did. And one of the things that I think we had to shift as leaders was we went from this, Cinderella team to, this stable, very successful program. And I think we had to elevate our leadership. And it went from being this, happy-go-lucky, we're, playing with house money kind of thing, to being way more organized operationally, but also holding our kids far more accountable than we ever were. It wasn't constantly like a pat on the back and the way it was for the first couple of years. Because once we had established ourselves as a good team and as good leaders, then you got to take it to the next level. And the only way to get to the next level in any part of life is to hold yourself and others accountable. And that's a really difficult skill. And I call it a skill set because I don't think you're necessarily born with that. But through sports, you can learn and you can push, ourselves and our coaching staff, but also the girls to be held accountable, but also know how to hold others accountable. And I think that's what took our operation to the next level.
Well, so that's actually brilliant. And I assume part of that accountability is also, hey, you may be a great lacrosse player, but if you want to have goals outside of lacrosse, you're getting your degree and you're going to class and you're doing what you need to do to excel in the classroom too, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that is the foundation of our program, is that these girls, if they want to really succeed in the world, they have to be well balanced. They have to push themselves as hard as they do on the field in the classroom. And they do a good job of that. Same thing with the community. But it is about being balanced, because in life later on, you're balancing so much. And again, another skill I want them to learn here at Boston College.
That's really good. We're going to talk about the community stuff a little bit later, because I think it's pretty unique, but it's amazing. So when it comes down to developing them as leaders and being accountable, what are your biggest challenges?
I think the confidence piece with these young women, I think the current climate of, social media and just the way culture is in college, where girls are expected to look a certain way, act a certain way, speak a certain way. I'm trying to sort of buck that system a little bit and get these girls to be truly who they are authentically, and figure out who they are, figure out who you are, figure out who you aren't, get comfortable with that. Because I think as soon as young women get comfortable with who they are and who they aren't, what they're good at, what they're not good at, understanding and accepting their blind spots, I think that's when you really build confidence, is when you start to like who you are, regardless of the circumstances. And I think sports gives us a platform to be able to do that, for girls to feel free to be aggressive, or feel free to hold people accountable, or feel free to compete with other women and not have it be negative or catty. I think those are the things that really teach these girls how to be confident in themselves, because life is the same way, right? You got to learn to be gritty. And I think just, again, sports has allowed us to do that. And Boston College affords us, the opportunity to do that. But I would say that confidence is the biggest thing. And my job and our philosophy here at Boston College is to teach these girls they have way more control over how they feel about themselves. Whereas I think right now in the world, they're looking at social media and, well, I look good if I look like that girl, or I'll sound smart if I sound like that girl. And I want them to figure out who they are and be comfortable with themselves and figure out how to improve on their weaknesses through hardcore, no way around it, work hard. And that's how you really build confidence, is when you work hard at something. That's the only way to secure self-esteem and self-belief, is through work ethic, not through exterior or outside people or things.
That's a great point that you're making. And I'm guessing that one of the ways, if you take a young woman who's in your program and she works hard and she begins to excel in lacrosse, and she can see the confidence that is built by excelling at lacrosse, that may translate to other areas of her life, right? She's always got that foundation of lacrosse to say, hey, if I work hard, I can see the results. I get the praise of the coaches and my fellow teammates. I can see people respect me, and I like that.
Right. And I think the beauty of that is that they're in control of that. They're in control of their work ethic. So you are actually in control of how much confidence you have. And I think giving young women and helping them understand how they actually have control over that is so powerful. Because one of the things that I see with my girls and with girls that we compete against is they get really uncomfortable and insecure when they feel like they can't control things, right? I guess that's maybe human nature a little bit.
Sure.
But in our culture here, our girls are so type A, they are high achievers. And so I don't want them to translate confidence from something exterior. I want them to say, I have control over this. So I actually can make myself feel better about myself and get better at things and get stronger at things through my own work ethic.
I think truer words may not have ever been spoken. Let me just ask you. So I think most successful coaches are very good at reading people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of discussion about whether you treat everybody the same, or you actually respond to somebody's uniqueness and you bring it out, because it's part of helping them develop that confidence. I assume your work doesn't end at the end of practice. If you notice that some of your young women are hurting, that there's something bothering them, that they don't feel good about themselves, or you see somebody who's been excelling on the practice field and then all of a sudden not, that you're open. You want them to come talk to you. Is that right?
Oh yeah. 100%. I think that's something I feel really value about our coaching staff, and is that we are more like moms and mentors and outlets than we are even coaches. I mean, my job it starts when practice is over. Practice is almost the easy outlet. I feel like I have 38 daughters that I'm keeping my eye on in terms of how well they're, doing in school and how they're feeling, and whether their boyfriend or girlfriend has broken up with them, or, how they're excelling, how they're learning. I mean, our job is to figure out these humans. We're borrowing them for 4 years from their parents, right? And then sending them off into the real world. So, I would say 75% of my job is learning about my girls and what they need and how they're feeling and what they're going through. Just last year I sat with my team because I was worried just about the pressure of, looking a certain way, and how that was counterintuitive to being, really superior athletes. And I walked in and I was already emotional because I just wanted to talk to the girls about life and being a female and balancing that with being, a big time athlete. And I just said, I'm taking my coaching hat off, girls, here in front of all of you. And I want to talk to you about females, like being a female and how we have to eat if you want to have children later on. You have to eat if you want to avoid bone cancer, and you have to have these certain carbs and all. I just talked about life and the 30 to 50 years after, or the 50 to 80 years after they're here, because they're forming these habits that are going to affect the rest of their life. So my point is, there's so much that goes into coaching outside of X's and O's. In fact, X's and O's are about 10% of our job. And that's the way we choose to do things here at BC. Every coach is different. But if we can gain the trust of these young women, they play hard for you. And also that you've built a relationship that will last forever.
It sounds like one of the keys too to all that is that your players find you relatable. You're not, in some tower looking over the field like football guys did in the 1950s. They like, my coach is human and she gets it and she understands us and she can listen and she has empathy, right?
Right. Well, I think one of, the most important to me, people ask me all the time, what's the most important aspect of leadership? And I always say that I personally think it is critical above all other things, communication, organization, courage and all that stuff. I think you have to be believable as a leader. And when you're trying to lead young women, college women who are really smart and, like I said, high achievers, it's more important to be who you are authentically. I say to my girls all the time, take it or leave it. I'm not good at X, Y, and Z. You're going to see me fall on my face, right in front of you guys, in front of the world. I'm not perfect. Here's who I am. Here's who I am not. And they love that. I think that's what makes them relatable, is that I don't try to be perfect. I'm so far from perfect, and they know that. So I think it's just about being believable, because it doesn't matter if you're trying to be like other people. Your girls, if your followers don't believe what you're saying or believe who you are, you have nothing. And I think that's a part of what I'm trying to teach them in terms of going into the real world. Just be who you are, and your leadership qualities will emerge, and they will be more authentic than ever. And you'll have a group of followers. You'll be able to command a room, and you'll be able to find success. But I do think that is so critical. Just be yourself. If people don't like it, they don't have to like it.
And I'm sure to a large degree that's true. What I think about is, I don't know that there are historically been a lot of coaches who are willing to be as vulnerable as you by standing in front of a group of people that you're coaching and saying, I'm no good at A, B, or C. Yeah. There's a lot of people who would never do that. But that may be one of your secret sauces.
Well, I just think, again, it makes you believable. Mm-hmm. And being vulnerable, in my opinion, I think there's brilliance in that, because you just, who wants to follow someone who thinks they know everything? Who wants to coach or play for someone who pretends like they're a masterclass at everything it takes to run a team or a company? No one. Just be vulnerable. It's okay. There's brilliance in that. Being smart, knowing your blind spots, I think is a critical life skill, because then you're smart enough to know how to surround yourself with people who are good at X, Y, and Z. My staff, they know exactly what my strengths and weaknesses are. And I would say we complement each other really well. And I think that's why we have success. And vulnerability is so powerful. And I know it's kind of a special word that's being used a lot right now. But I do think as leaders, vulnerability is critical, because it just makes you human.
Well, that's a very important thing. And I would say much more so for the modern athlete than it was, 30, 40, 50 years ago, maybe even when you were playing lacrosse 2 years ago at University of Maryland. Okay, so talk to me about some of the challenge that you had to overcome with a particular player? No names unless you're super
Yeah.
comfortable, such as, maybe they didn't have confidence or they were lost. I mean, talk about what you did, how that worked.
Yeah, well, I have a ton of stories. I feel like every year something new evolves. I think one of the big ones that I'm, most proud of is someone didn't see themselves as this powerful leader the way that everyone else saw. And I think they constantly were cutting themselves really short. And um, one of the things that I think she needed to do was in her earlier on in her career was to constantly get praise from the coaches and from her teammates for her to have any sort of self-esteem. And it took a couple years for us to get through to her that we wanted her to see in herself what everyone else saw. But in order to do that, she had to overcome a lot of her fears as a leader, which one of them was having, difficult conversations. She sort of saw things like that, like she has to be mean or harsh or and I'm like, no, all you have to do is talk to this person, you'll develop this skill of having hard conversations by just being yourself. Tell them how you feel about this specific thing and have this practice in learning how to have hard conversations. But also she was constantly seeking us for, praise and compliments. And I told her, I said, for 6 months, I'm not going to give you outward praise. And you have to figure out how to build confidence without the coaches praising you in front of the team. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to baby you. And I told her that the only way she would figure this out and discover this about herself was through her own work ethic. And by the end of the 6 months and by the end of that year, she was not only the hardest worker on the team, but she had discovered, her superpowers through her work ethic. That's one that is one of my favorite stories. Another one I had three I had that just were superstar lacrosse players, but weren't really comfortable talking a lot on the field. And we had to be really hard on them to get them to understand that if you don't communicate and talk to your teammates as you play, you can't be on the field. It doesn't work. It doesn't matter how good you are. And we would just put them through these series of different drills and these activities outside of practice to learn to communicate more frequently, more articulate, be more articulate and have the courage to talk to people because they were kind of shy and it was limiting their potential. So, I could talk about it for days. There's so many different examples, but those two kind of stick out. Meanwhile, they turned out to be two of the greatest players in the history of the program. And I think through some of those challenges, they found another level of success.
I think, the unfortunate thing about you saying that is there's enough people who follow the program who are going to be like, okay, who was the All-American? But it's fine.
Well,
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. So, but there's a point that you made that, I have had women executives that I have represented or even coached to some degree who have had a discussion with me very similar to one of the things you just said, that you don't have to be mean to get your point across.
Yeah, no.
And it's interesting that you said that. And, it's probably beyond the scope of today why there are a number of women who are successful, who feel like if they're not mean, people won't take you seriously.
Right.
But I mean, it sounds like you're seeing in it, you're dealing with it. And the interesting thing is you're probably not mean with your players so that, they can see that if you need to have difficult conversations, aren't going to belittle them, right. Mock them, yell at them. But it's really important, I think, for women and women's life skills to be able to do exactly what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, I think having hard conversations, again, is a skill set. No one's born being good at saying something direct that may be negative to someone. No one's naturally good at that, right? You have to practice it. And I think for young women, it's just about finding out how to be direct without being harsh. And what I tell my girls all the time, and we put our captains and our leadership group through this all the time, from the minute they become a sophomore, an upperclassman, we have them practicing difficult conversations. You need to confront two teammates in the next week about something really difficult, and you need to practice what you want to say so that you're not being harsh, so that you'll be heard, the message will be received, and you've just now solved a problem because you had the courage and the gumption to have a difficult conversation. Life is about having difficult conversations with a colleague, with a boss, with your husband or wife, with your kids. If you avoid that, you're in trouble. And I want our girls to learn how to do that. And you don't have to be mean, or you don't have to yell, and you certainly don't have to pretend like you're smarter or better than them. You just have to be able to deliver a direct message. And that can be hard. But you can certainly learn that. And we try to force our girls to do that. In fact, we just had an assignment this morning where the girls had to have 2 difficult conversations with another classmate by the end of the week and report how it went. How did you do? How did they do? Is the problem resolved? And through that practice, you'll get better at it. Because it's an important life skill.
There should be people from business school watching this. They should probably be copying that idea. Thanks for tuning in. If you want more info on the show, please visit blockandtackleshow.com. And you can also email me at carl@blockandtackleshow.com. Thanks for tuning in.